Hey everybody, welcome to the Urban Outlander. My name's Jordan. Happy to have you here. It's another episode of Outlander Season 2. We are on episode 209, Je Suis Prest. And are you ready? Check me out on theUrbanOutlander.com. You can check me out on YouTube. Here, of course, this is where you are. Leave a comment. Why don't you check me out on Twitter? Why don't you check me out on Facebook? There's so many ways to connect, and I'm always happy to talk about Outlander in any way, shape, or form. I do have to point out my t-shirt. It's new, and it's You Had Me at Sassenach. I want to make sure we get a good shot here because I feel like those are words to really live by for so many of us. And I like it's purple. It's getshirts.com. I'm not really endorsing them, but officially. But this t-shirt is so great, and they have so many great Outlander shirts. But I love this t-shirt, so I wanted to show it. All right, enough about the shirt. The opening title card of this episode. When I first watched it, I was so distracted. I couldn't even notice who directed this episode, who wrote the episode, because the tank rolling by and the foot soldiers was just so jarring to me. It was so different because we're in the 20th century, so clearly in the 20th century, and most of the title cards are never like that at all. And so, but I really loved it. And along with that opening title card, the music in this episode is brilliant. I mean, I don't know what else to say about Bear McCreary other than he's a genius. It's the militaristic choral style. It adds like an intensity. It's very much the morale booster. I mean, when I was listening to it while watching the show, I definitely felt like this sense of pride, and you really get this like urgency. Did you notice that after the intro of the title card, when we get into the episode, we have that humming of that choir, and then the next song that they do is the song from season 1 when Claire is watching at Castle Leoch, and she's watching I forget the character, but the guy playing the harp and singing the song about time traveling, and that's when she first realizes the sort of the mythology that the Highlanders had of people traveling through stones. And here the song is again in this episode, and I was so excited. I thought it was such an interesting and great thing to include, sort of juxtaposing 20th century to the 18th century in terms of the time travel, and that thread kind of like, of course, obviously runs throughout the whole episode. And so I don't know, but like hearing it in that kind of musicality was just like super cool. And I can't even imagine what Bear McCreary is going to do for the next episode. And I know it was a collaboration with another artist that he did, a Scottish Gaelic musician who also apparently does like some hip-hop Gaelic historical music, but also like super modern. I don't know. He seems pretty cool. So I really loved this collaboration. It is our Scottish family reunion in this episode. We have Murtagh returns, we meet up with him, and then we have Rupert and Angus, and then Dougal, right? I kind of love also like when we come upon Murtagh, I love how he kind of winks at Claire. I love that wink he gives her. I love how this episode kind of, the power balance shifts, and we have Jamie becoming the leader and the man. I mean, he is the leader, he is the commander, and he stands up to Dougal how many times in this episode? And I thought it was so interesting because I feel like their relationship is so much more, I felt like a generational difference. Even though Dougal is the older and wiser one, the older and wiser respected uncle, he's so like hot-headed in a way, and he just sort of wants to get into battle and fight the British with his shirt off. Jamie's like, no, we have to stop, and we have to train these soldiers. These guys aren't ready. And Jamie sort of takes on this more adult, mature commander role. And Dougal really is sort of put down often by Jamie in this episode. Not necessarily disrespectfully, but very much of a position of know your place. This is my clan. This is my troop. And if you're going to stay here, you're going to, acquiesce to my rules. You got to play along with me or else you got to go. But Dougal, and seeing sort of him having to take a step down after season 1 of him being so much in charge and telling everybody else what to do and everybody following his lead. And here we now have him having to take a few steps back, or maybe a step back, and have to listen to his nephew. Claire's PTSD. I really felt they did a really beautiful job of showing the trauma. We are seeing her in this state of almost paralyzation as she's reliving some of these episodes. That scene where Jamie and Murtagh are kind of talking about her and Jamie's concerned, and she's sort of like sad, pitifully stirring this pot out in the field. I was like, oh, that shot of her coming out and the camera revolves around her and we almost like auditory hallucination. We hear all of these sounds from World War II as she's reliving it, and I thought that was done really well. It was simple but effective, which is very much we as filmmakers want to do. We want to be, you can be simple and effective and it can really carry the story through. And it didn't have to be a visual effects thing. We didn't have to have her like an 18th century garb, but like suddenly she's in the middle of the 20th century battlefield. We didn't really need any of that. This was effective enough. What I thought was also really interesting is whenever she's in her flashback, Claire is almost like this other person. Did you notice that? She's like Nurse Beecham, telling the boys, be careful of getting the gangrene and getting like sick and all these things, but being really chummy with the soldiers. We don't really see a lot of the effects of war on these characters throughout most of the story so far, including season 1. But I know that Tobias Menzies, Katrina Balfe, and Sam Heughan have talked a lot about it in gearing up for season 2, the effects of war on each of their characters. And now in this episode, we really see it come to fruition.